I'm Olivia, 32 years old, and my life changed forever under the crystal chandeliers of a historic Charleston plantation. At my sister Chloe's wedding, surrounded by ancient oaks draped in Spanish moss, I watched her lift a champagne flute. She looked like a queen, radiant and untouchable in her custom couture gown. With 500 of the South's most influential people watching, she began her toast by singling me out. "I want to thank my big sister Olivia," she cooed, a perfect smile plastered on her face as a spotlight found me. We took such different paths. While I was out building an empire, Olivia was, well, she was at home. A few guests chuckled uncomfortably. The air thickened with a tension only I could truly understand. "I guess," Chloe continued, her voice dripping with faux sympathy, "not all of us are born to conquer the world." The words were a public execution disguised as a toast. The subtext was clear. I was the failure, the unambitious one who had let herself go. As a hot wave of shame washed over me and I prepared to flee, something impossible happened. Her new husband, Ethan, the handsome heir to the Harrington fortune, stood up. He moved with a quiet, deliberate grace that silenced the room. He took the microphone from Chloe's stunned hand, his gaze locking with mine from across the room. "That's not what happened," Ethan said, his voice calm, but carrying an undeniable authority that cut through the whispers. "What time is it where you are right now? Whatever it is, if you've ever felt completely misunderstood by the people who should know you best, just drop a heart in the comments so I know I'm not alone." He then turned back to the crowd. "And now, I'm going to tell you the real story." Before Ethan could say another word, the glittering ballroom seemed to dissolve, and my mind spiraled back in time. I was a child again, back in our sprawling home in Charleston's historic district. The humid summer air, thick with the scent of jasmine and gardenias, used to be filled with the sound of my violin. My instructor, a stern but brilliant woman named Mrs. Delacroix, told my parents I had a rare gift. She spoke of Juilliard, of scholarships, of a future on the world's most prestigious stages. My violin was my world, an extension of my soul, and for a while, Chloe was my biggest fan. She would sit on the floor of my room for hours, sketching dress designs in a notepad while I practiced, humming along to Vivaldi. But everything changed around her 15th birthday. Chloe blossomed from a pretty girl into a true Southern belle, effortlessly charming and devastatingly beautiful. Suddenly, my quiet, disciplined talent seemed dull and invisible next to her radiant social life. Our mother, a woman who valued appearances above all else, shifted her focus entirely to Chloe. My first chair position in the State Youth Orchestra earned a polite nod, but Chloe's crowning as the Azalea Festival Queen was celebrated for weeks. It's a strange thing, sibling rivalry, isn't it? For anyone watching who has a sibling, type 1 in the comments if you're the older one, and 2 if you're the younger. I'm just curious to see who I'm talking to. It felt like I was in a race I never even signed up for, and Chloe was determined to win, no matter the cost. Her compliments became double-edged swords, her support laced with subtle sabotage. The foundation of our sisterhood had cracked long before this wedding. Chak Chun Roy, de la Fan 3. That crack in our sisterhood became a gaping chasm my sophomore year of college. The phone call came on a Tuesday, interrupting my practice session for a major university concerto competition. It was Mom, her voice thin and brittle, stripped of its usual socialite confidence. "The doctors found something, Liv," she whispered, and the world tilted on its axis. The word was cancer. aggressive. Treatment had to begin immediately. I drove the 4 hours home that weekend in a daze. The sheet music for my Juilliard audition lay on the passenger seat, but it felt like a relic from another life. Seeing my mother, so suddenly frail and small in the grand living room she once commanded, sealed my fate. There was no real choice to make. I walked into the registrar's office the next Monday and officially deferred my education, effectively shelving a dream I had spent my entire life building. Chloe flew in from a fashion internship in New York a few days later. She sat with me on the veranda, looking stunning even in her distress. "You've always been so much better at the caretaking stuff, Olivia," she said, her eyes welling with perfectly photogenic tears. "And this program in LA, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's my big break. You understand, right?" And the most painful part was, I did. Our mother, even in her weakened state, echoed the sentiment. "One of you has to live your dream," she insisted, her hand weakly stroking Chloe's hair. So Chloe packed her designer suitcases for the sunshine of Los Angeles, chasing her ambition. I stayed behind and learned how to read blood charts. She posted pictures of parties in the Hollywood Hills, while I held our mother's hand through agonizing nights of chemotherapy. The world celebrated her ascent, and no one saw me slowly disappearing. Chak Chun Roy, de la Fawn 4. The next 7 years unfolded in a blur of hospital corridors, pharmacy runs, and sleepless nights. My world, once filled with sonatas and concert halls, shrank to the 4 walls of our quiet Charleston house. The music inside me grew quiet, replaced by the constant hum of medical equipment. I found solace not in my violin, but in the pantry. Late-night bowls of mac and cheese after a hospital scare became my only comfort. A handful of cookies in the afternoon was my only stress relief. My body, once lean and strong from years of disciplined practice, softened and expanded, bearing the physical weight of my grief and exhaustion. Meanwhile, Chloe's world exploded. Her Instagram feed was a kaleidoscope of rooftop parties in the Hollywood Hills, front-row seats at Fashion Week, and collaborations with luxury brands. She became a bona fide influencer, an LA it girl. Her visits home were rare, whirlwind affairs. She'd fly in for a weekend, arriving in a cloud of expensive perfume, her arms laden with gifts that felt more like transactions than gestures of love. She would take a few perfectly staged photos with our ailing mother, for her followers, of course, captioned with something like, "Family over everything," before flying back to her glamorous life. During one visit, she eyed my fuller figure and said, "You should really try this new celery juice cleanse I'm on. Live. It does wonders for bloating." It was a tiny comment, but it felt like a dagger. Have you ever sacrificed something huge for someone, only for them to act like it was nothing? If you have, share your story or just type, "I've been there," in the comments. Sometimes just knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. I was giving my life for our family, and all she saw was someone who needed a diet. Mom passed away 2 years ago, on a quiet spring morning when the gardenia blooms were at their most fragrant. Chloe flew in for the funeral, looking flawless in a black designer dress, accepting condolences with the practiced grace of a grieving socialite. She left the very next day for a critical business meeting, leaving me alone to sort through the silent, empty house and the remnants of a life. I slowly began to rebuild, finding a small apartment downtown and starting a little business teaching violin to local children. I was finding my own quiet rhythm, learning to live with the ghosts of the past. Then, 6 months ago, Chloe called, her voice electric with excitement. I'm engaged, she announced, not even waiting for me to say hello. His name is Ethan Harrington. Yes, that Harrington family. Old Charleston money, incredible business sense, and he is completely, utterly devoted to me. I offered my genuine congratulations, long past the point of expecting more from her. But then she said something that threw me. The only weird thing, she sighed, a hint of annoyance in her voice, is that he's so big on family. He keeps asking about you, wanting to meet my amazing big sister. It's a little exhausting, but he's worth it. A beat of silence. So, he wants to meet you at our engagement party next month. For the first time in nearly a decade, a tiny, foolish seed of hope began to sprout in the barren landscape of my heart. A man who valued family, a man who was actively asking about me. Maybe he would be the bridge. Maybe his influence could finally mend the chasm between Chloe and me. Perhaps, after all this time, we finally had a chance to be sisters again. I held on to that fragile hope like a lifeline, completely unaware that it was about to be used as a weapon against me. I walked into that engagement party at the exclusive Charleston Yacht Club, clinging to that fragile hope. The air was thick with the scent of money and salt water. Chloe introduced me to Ethan, and he was everything she'd said. Handsome, confident, the kind of man who commands a room without raising his voice. But there was a kindness in his eyes, a genuine warmth that seemed completely at odds with Chloe's world of sharp edges and social climbing. He asked about my music, my teaching, and most surprisingly, he asked about Mom. He listened with an intensity that was startling, his gaze never wavering. What I didn't know then, what I would only learn much later, was that this wasn't just polite conversation. It was confirmation. Ethan was a man who built his empire on facts and due diligence, and the stories Chloe told him about her estranged, difficult older sister never quite added up. She had painted a picture of someone lazy and unambitious, a story that clashed with the whispers he'd heard from other distant family friends about a violin prodigy who had vanished from the music scene. So, he had done his own research. A quiet call to the admissions office at my university confirmed my scholarship, and the reason for my deferral. Family medical emergency. He'd had a conversation with a distant cousin who tearfully recounted my 7 years of devotion to our mother. By the time I walked into that party, Ethan Harrington already knew the truth. He knew about the sacrifice, the broken dreams, the life I had given up. He wasn't just meeting his fiancée's sister. He was looking for the quiet hero he had already discovered. When Chloe reappeared, slipping her arm possessively through his, I just thought she was reclaiming her fiancé. I had no idea she was trying to pull him away from a truth she desperately wanted to keep buried. After that engagement party, Chloe's behavior towards me shifted from casual dismissal to a kind of strategic cruelty. It was as if Ethan's kindness had ignited her jealousy, and she was now determined to prove to him and to the world that I was unworthy of his respect. The wedding preparations became her stage. The first act was the bridesmaid dress shopping on King Street. She chose a high-end boutique and a slinky, form-fitting dress style she knew would be impossible for my body. As her other rail-thin friends slipped in and out of the samples, Chloe announced loudly to the consultant, "We'll have to special order for Olivia. She's not exactly sample size." The words were designed to make me feel like an oversized problem. The bridal shower was even worse. While her friends gifted her Cartier bracelets and trips to Bali, I gave her a carefully restored photo album of our family, filled with pictures of a smiling, healthy mom. How nostalgic, she said, before quickly setting it aside to marvel at a crystal decanter. Later, I overheard her talking to her maid of honor in another room. I only included her because Ethan insisted, Chloe whispered venomously. Honestly, it's embarrassing. People must see us together and wonder how we're even related. The words were meant to be private, but they hit me harder than any public insult. It's devastating when the people who are supposed to build you up are the ones secretly tearing you down. If you've ever had to put on a brave face in a situation that was breaking your heart, I see you. Let me know in the comments which you think is worse, a public insult or a private betrayal. I honestly don't know the answer. I wanted to walk away, but a stubborn part of me refused to let her win, refused to be erased from my own family's history. The reception was a masterclass in choreographed perfection, an illusion I was forced to be a part of. Then came the toasts. After the best man and maid of honor, the planner announced, and now, a special toast from our beautiful bride, Chloe, to her sister, Olivia. A spotlight swung in my direction, and a wave of polite applause rippled through the room. Chloe glided to the microphone, her smile dazzling. I want to talk about family, she began, her voice quivering with expertly feigned emotion. Specifically, my sister. As many of you know, while I was out in the world chasing my dreams, building a career, Sophia stayed home. The room murmured with appreciation for what seemed like a heartfelt tribute. I felt my father's hand squeeze my arm reassuringly under the table. But then, Chloe's tone shifted. Of course, those years took their toll, she said, her smile sharpening. I mean, we've all heard of the freshman 15, but Sophia here practically invented the caretaker 40. A wave of uncomfortable laughter trickled through the crowd. My blood ran cold. It's funny, she went on, warming to her theme. I used to be so jealous of her talent. But talent without ambition doesn't get you very far, does it? Now look at us. She gestured from her own perfect silhouette to me. I told her not to worry about not having a date tonight. We love them anyway, don't we? Our siblings? Even when they're a living reminder of how blessed the rest of us are. The final words landed like a physical blow. Time slowed. I could feel 500 pairs of eyes on me. Not with sympathy, but with the morbid curiosity of a crowd watching a car crash. I saw my father's face, pale with fury. I saw Ethan's parents, rigid with shock. I gathered what little dignity I had left and rose from my seat, my only thought to escape before I shattered completely. I had almost reached the grand oak doors of the ballroom, my vision blurred with unshed tears, when a single, clear voice cut through the resumed chatter. Excuse me. It was Ethan. I paused, my hand on the door, not wanting to turn around, not wanting to witness another moment of this nightmare. He wasn't at the head table. He had walked to the very center of the dance floor, microphone in hand, forcing every eye back to him. His expression wasn't angry. It was profoundly serious, etched with a deep, unexpected disappointment. He looked directly at me, 100 feet away, his gaze cutting through the crowd. Olivia, he said, using my name with a respect I hadn't felt all night. Before I go any further, I want to publicly apologize to you. My failure to stop that speech was inexcusable, and for that, I am truly sorry. A collective gasp swept the room. Chloe shot up from her seat, her face a mask of disbelief. Ethan gave her a look that silenced her instantly before turning back to the guests. What you all just heard, he said, his voice ringing with a calm, unshakable authority. The story of an unambitious sister, and a successful one, is a fiction. It is a cruel and calculated lie. The world seemed to stop. A man was publicly choosing integrity over allegiance to his new wife, in front of everyone they knew. It was a terrifying, beautiful thing to witness. What would you have done if you were Ethan? Would you have stayed silent to keep the peace on your wedding day? Or would you have spoken the truth? Let me know your choice in the comments, peace or truth. I held my breath, unable to move, rooted to the spot by the sheer force of his conviction. The truth, he continued, his eyes finding mine again, is that one sister sacrificed everything so the other could have it all. Ethan's words hung in the air, electric and irrefutable. He didn't need to raise his voice. The quiet truth of his statement was more powerful than any shout. He kept his eyes on me for a moment longer, a look of profound respect passing between us, before he turned his attention back to the silent, watching crowd. For 7 years, he said, his voice resonating through the grand ballroom, while Chloe was building her brand in LA and being celebrated for her success, Olivia was at home, not because she lacked ambition, but because she chose to put her own dreams of a violin scholarship to Juilliard, of a life in music, on hold to become a full-time caretaker for their dying mother. He let that sink in. She learned to administer medication. She stayed up through countless nights of pain. She sacrificed her youth, her health, and her future so her mother wouldn't be alone. And so her sister— He paused, glancing at Chloe. Could be free. He then addressed Chloe's cruelest jibe head-on. The extra weight my wife so casually mocked was not a punchline. It was the physical toll of 7 years of unrelenting stress, grief, and selfless love. It is a testament to her character, not a source of shame. He then walked slowly back towards the head table, stopping directly in front of his pale, trembling bride. So now, you have a choice, Chloe, he said, his voice low, but carrying to every corner of the room. You can stand up, take this microphone, and give your sister the genuine, heartfelt apology she has deserved for the last decade. He paused, the silence stretching into an eternity. Or this marriage, this entire charade, is over before it has even begun. I will not build my future on a foundation of cruelty. He held the microphone out to her. The choice was hers. An eternity seemed to pass in that silent, gilded ballroom. The microphone hovered between Ethan and Chloe, a symbol of a choice that would define everything. I watched Chloe's face cycle through a storm of emotions, utter shock, raw indignation, and finally, a cold, hard fury. The mask of the perfect bride had finally cracked, revealing the bitter resentment beneath. She wouldn't apologize. I knew it. For her, admitting fault was a fate worse than death. "How dare you?" she finally hissed, her voice a venomous whisper, loud enough for the front tables to hear. "You would do this to me, to us, on our wedding day. You're choosing her over your wife." Ethan didn't flinch. He simply pulled the microphone back, his expression now laced with a deep, weary sadness. "I'm not choosing her over you, Chloe," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "I'm choosing character over cruelty. I'm choosing truth over performance." He then glanced towards his parents. His mother, Eleanor, gave a slow, almost imperceptible nod of support, her eyes filled with a sad understanding. His father simply looked at his son with an expression of profound pride. Ethan then addressed the stunned guests one last time. "I sincerely apologize to everyone for this. Please enjoy the food and the music at my family's expense. As for the wedding, he paused, his voice leaving no room for doubt. It's over. And with that, he set the microphone down on the nearest table. Without another look at the woman he had married just hours before, he walked off the dance floor. As he passed me at the exit, he gave a single brief nod of solidarity and then disappeared through the grand oak doors, leaving Chloe utterly alone in the ruins of her perfect day. The triumph she had craved had turned to ash, all in the brilliant, unforgiving spotlight she had created for herself. I didn't stay to watch the rest of the fallout. I slipped out of those grand oak doors and into the warm Charleston night, taking my first deep breath of truly free air in over a decade. The wedding wasn't just over. A chapter of my life defined by my sister's shadow was finally, blessedly, closed. Later, I heard the annulment was quiet and swift. Chloe, stripped of her prize, reportedly left the city, her social media empire vanishing overnight. Her perfect world, built on a fragile foundation of lies, couldn't withstand a single dose of truth. And me? I went home. Not to the house I grew up in, but to the home I had forgotten, my music. I took my violin out of its case, my fingers stiff and clumsy at first. But as I drew the bow across the strings, a melody emerged, hesitant, then stronger. It was the sound of myself returning. Today, my life isn't glamorous. I teach violin to children who have the same fire in their eyes I once did, and I play with a local chamber orchestra. It's a quiet life, but it's authentic, and it is entirely mine. The greatest lesson from that night is this: your value is never determined by someone else's spotlight. For years, I measured my worth against Chloe's shine, and it left me feeling worthless. But a near stranger, in an act of breathtaking integrity, showed me that true strength isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about the quiet courage to honor your own truth. If this story resonated with you, and if you believe in the power of choosing your own worth over anyone else's approval, hit that subscribe button and join this community. Let's celebrate the quiet heroes and the authentic journeys. Thank you for listening.